Trek Wars, we'll be reviewing the Springfield Class. The Springfield Class starship is a Federation design of the 2352s. The Springfield Class is the third from the final design of the Galaxy Class project of the United Federation of Planets. The Springfield Class starship is designed with newer technology from its sensors all the way up towards weaponry. This meant that the Springfield Class was the most advanced starship to date as of its release. So the Springfield Class is 325 meters. It has a mass of 650 metric tons. It has a warp cruising speed of 7.5, a max of 9.2 for a short period of time. It has 8 Type 9 phaser arrays, 2 torpedo launchers, a mission pod, which consists of either cargo, sensory equipment, or weaponry if necessary. The Springfield Class consisted of several brand new technologies such as Type 9 phaser arrays as well as new photon torpedo technology. Although the ship was still using a single-shot torpedo launcher, the calibration of torpedo was much higher than previous generations. It also had a brand new multi-purpose advanced module located on the back of the ship, which could be implemented with several different modules depending on the mission profile. These modules consisted of mostly sensor arrays systems, cargo, and occasionally weapon pods. Starfleet had started a modernization project with the New Orleans class, replacing long-range deep space explorers like the Constellation and Constitution class. It also was creating newer, more sophisticated cruisers such as the Cheyenne class to replace the Excelsior, and finally the Springfield class to replace its aging destroyer fleet consisting of mostly Miranda class starships. What stands out as the most unique feature of the Springfield class design is the fact that the engineering section is completely separate and connected by pylons to the main saucer. This design choice is based upon the fact that Springfield class warp core is based upon the Galaxy class warp core. Although this ship's warp core brings you enormous amounts of power, allowing this ship to sport brand new technology and high-grade weaponry such as Type 9 phasers, the only drawback to this enormous power is the fact that the warp core itself is prone to a warp core breach if damaged, just like the Galaxy class. This power comes at a price. In order to try to negate the damage of a warp core explosion, the ship can easily detach itself from the engineering section. A secondary reason for having a separate saucer and engineering section is the engineering section. The pylons are also located the newer photon torpedo technology. There were concerns about the higher grade stability of newer photon torpedo technology. The concerns about the torpedoes would turn out not to be an issue and would be implemented into all further Starfleet designs. So the Springfield shields are designed off the Galaxy class shields. They're not as strong, but for a ship of its size, its shields are enormous. So the relatively weakness, as one would say, about the warp core possibility of an explosion, you'd first have to get past shields that are almost equal to that of Galaxy class. This ship's shields were incredibly strong for a ship of its size. Now its hull strength, on the other hand, was pretty mediocre. It was a destroyer, so it was slightly higher than average, but it's nothing like the Defiant. It was a lower grade starship when it comes to hull strength, but the ship is still a respectable starship, and it would have been something hard to deal with during its time period, especially for the fact that it had Type 9 phaser emitters, which were stronger than anything else out there, and its new photon torpedo warheads, though they were single shot, they were very powerful, and they were equivalent to single shot or multi-shot weaponry because of their actual destructive power. So this was a ship that not very many races would want to engage during its time period, even though it fell short during the Dominion War. Unfortunately, after the attack of the Borg and the United Federation of Planets, it was deemed that the Springfield class wasn't technologically adequate for Federation defenses, and newer lines of starships would replace it, such as the Sabre, the Akira, Steamrunner, and others. Newer designs led to the early decommissioning of the Springfield class. Another notable reason for the ship's decommissioning early was of its design flaws with its engineering section. The original ship was constructed, and due to the pod being introduced, it somewhat neglected the warp bubble capabilities of the starship. So, though it could cruise at unusually high speeds, when it came to actual high speeds of warp, the ship could only maintain warp speed for 6 hours, which was inadequate for any ship to be in combat during the Dominion War. So, this meant that the ship had to be decommissioned after the Dominion War. And during the Dominion War, because it's relatively slow, high warp speeds, it was delegated to just defensive duties. The Springfield class, after the Dominion War, would be completely decommissioned. So let's break down the Springfield class. Why did Starfleet quit using it? Well, mostly it's because of the mobile pod. So that made it adaptable. But the problem is you would have to build a unique infrastructure around it because the pods would have to be reattached at an appropriate space station or space dock. That's going to create an issue. So that means the ship is going to have to be in space dock a large percent of its time getting its pod removed and put back on. Now, as far as a ship that's defending a target, it does rather well. Um, when it comes to offense, it's terrible. The ship is only capable of high warp speeds for 6 hours, which is half the speed of a normal Federation starship at the time period. So during the Dominion War, the ship could not engage fleets or be with fleets. It would have to only protect. So besides the fact that it is an older generation and the fact that it needs lots of support from logistics and the fact that it can't attack targets at long range because it's too slow really was what was the nail in the coffin for the Springfield class. Now, I will admit that during the time period that this ship was actually constructed, it was fantastic. Its torpedoes were higher caliber than anything else out there. It had Type 9 phasers, which were outgunning just about anything out there. Its shielding is good. It's a destroyer, so for a ship of its size, its hull strength was higher than average, but it wasn't phenomenal. So these are the little things that led to the death of the Springfield class. Do I think it's a bad design? No. I just think the design itself was built at the wrong time. If the ship would have been built, in my opinion, would say in the 2340s, maybe before the New Orleans class, I think it would have been a success. And I'm sure they would have eventually figured out the issue with the warp. But because of the time period it was built in and the situation around it, it wasn't worth the time or the effort to reconstruct this ship or build more of them. There were so many better things and better choices. So the Springfield ship is a ship that it was lost in time.
If you like this content, please subscribe and tell your friends. If you're a fan of Star Trek, make a comment. It makes a difference. With that being said, thank you all for watching Trek Wars.